walking into church, it seems I'm playing the bagpipes, it seems so quiet. Anyway, please be seated. Recently I read in the news that scientists had discovered or made 4 new elements. And for those with the familiarity with the periodic table, it means now that the 7th row is full. This is very exciting news for those who are interested in science and for those who do research. And I think somewhat timely as the grade 7, 8, and 9 students begin their research in preparation for the science fair projects. I was really lucky to have had a chance to work in research after I graduated from university. And I can tell you from experience, grade 7, 8, and 9 students, that research is anything but smooth sailing. Every time you feel like you're making progress, something breaks. Or you discover a flaw in your procedure. And then you realize you have to start all over again. One day when I was quite flustered about having to redo some analysis on the project I was working on, and at the level of research I was doing, that meant reanalyzing hundreds of thousands of samples, adding an additional 6 to 8 weeks on the project, one of the senior researchers shared the following story with me, and it made me smile. And I hope it makes you smile too. Not long ago, engineers at a major aerospace company were instructed to test the effects of bird strikes, notably geese, on the windshield of airliners and military jets. And to simulate the effect of a goose colliding with an aircraft traveling at high speeds, the test engineers built a powerful gun to fire dead chickens at the windshields. The simulations using the gun and the dead chickens worked extremely effectively, happily proving the suitability of the windshields. They gathered the results, produced several articles about the project, which were then published in research magazines all over the world. As it happened, another test laboratory in a different part of the world was involved in assessing bird strikes, in this case, on the windshields of the cabs of high-speed trains. The train test engineers had read about the test developed by the aerospace team, and so they wrote to ask for the specifications of the gun and the testing methods, and the aerospace engineers gave them all the details. The train engineers set about to build their own simulation. Simulated bird strike tests on the train windshields produced shocking results. The supposed state-of-the-art shatterproof high-speed train windshields offered little resistance to the high-speed dead chickens. In fact, every single windshield that was submitted for testing was smashed to pieces, along with a number of the train cabs and much of the test booth itself. Horrified, the train engineers were concerned that the new high-speed trains required a safety technology and windshield design that was well beyond their experience. So they contacted the aerospace team, sent them an extensive report of the tests and the failures, and asked for some advice and some suggestions. It wasn't long before a letter arrived from the aerospace engineers, and it read as follows. Many thanks for your report. After analyzing your data, we quickly recognized a very simple problem. You forgot to defrost the chickens. Mr. Our first academic assembly, the awards tonight are based on your term 1 results, as we talked about this morning, and for students in grade 7 to 11, your term ended in November, and for students in grade 12, your term ended in December. Students who achieved academic honors, students who have earned a place on the headmaster's list, and finally, students who have earned the highest average in their grade. But before we do that, we're going to listen to some thoughts from our guest speaker, Mr. Jackson, and I would ask Mr. Wolf, please, to give us the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Well, I'm really delighted to talk to you tonight about Mr. Ian Jackson, who is has a long connection with the school and is someone who has become a very good friend. I'm not sure if you know Mr. Jackson, or if you do know him, if you know him that well. You probably know him as the guy in the business office, yes. You probably know him even better as the guy behind the counter at the Pat Burns Arena, serving the blue Gatorade and the poutine, yes. But Mr. Jackson is someone who's had a 40-year association with Stanstead College as a student, an alumnus, a trustee, a director, and now the business manager of Stanstead College. He graduated from Stanstead in 1982 after 6 years here as a day student. Stanstead lifer, he was a prefect, went on to Carleton University, and in 1984, he was hired by a little company called Microsoft as employee number 7 in Canada. And that's why one of the reasons you saw, if you were at Assembly this morning, the picture of Ian with Bill Gates, who back in the day was a good friend of his. He started off, I don't want to say he started off in the warehouse stacking boxes, but he started off in the warehouse of Microsoft Canada. He was a return supervisor for software back in the days when we had floppy disks, I guess. Moved up to educational sales, looking after the university market. After a few years of that, he moved on to Panasonic, again involved in computer products, particularly in new technology for video games. Because of that, he moved in 1995 to EA, Electronic Arts, where he was the Canadian sales manager. And about a year after that, he moved on to Sony Canada, which was to become his home for the next 11 years. He went from sales manager to the general manager of Sony Computer Entertainment, essentially PlayStation. He was in charge of all that. It was not the biggest, but it was the most profitable division within Sony Canada. And because of his great work there, he was promoted to Vice President, Sales and Merchandise for Sony, essentially Sony North America, all of Canada and the United States. I'm not sure if he was Mexico as well, but very, very senior position within Sony. And then after following that, he went out on his own, started a company called Yup, which was involved in environmental products, and eventually became the president of Weight Loss Canada, a number of franchises in Canada. And throughout all this time, remained loyal to Stanstead College. In fact, I met him 13 years ago, and Ian had been out of touch with the college for a couple of years and couldn't wait to get back. And in those years, he's been a very generous supporter of the school, whether it's sponsoring an art scholarship, paying for the furniture in the student center, paying for a lot of our AV equipment, video cameras. We had a game console that he donated, always thinking of the school, always a great friend. And he's someone who really held the school in high regard, and I'm very happy that he's back now, that he's come home to a place where he belongs, to a place that he loves and truly cares about. And it's not just Stanstead that he cares about, it's you that he cares about. And I get these kind of emails from Ian all the time, but he sent me one today, and I wanted to read it to you. And it says, "I've said it before and I'll say it again. I have never seen a better bunch of kids in my life. Their demeanor, manners, general attitude over at the arena this weekend when ordering food, etc. were really outstanding. They talk and treat the restaurant staff with such respect. Really something impressive." And that's not a one-off. I mean, Ian is always noticing those kind of things, always sending me those kind of things. And he really does care about the school and about the students who are here. If you go outside his office, you're going to see right on the right-hand side on the first floor of Colby, a poem, and Ian wrote that in 1982 for the yearbook, the year he graduated, and there are a number of different stanzas, and it really sort of captures his feelings about his time at Stanstead. But one of the stanzas reads, "The time went too fast, so much to do, with just one wish, I could make it come true. That wish would be to reverse time, return to Stanstead one more in my prime." Well, he has returned to Stanstead, and we're delighted to have him back home, back where he belongs. I'd like to welcome Mr. Ian Jackson.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Wolf. I appreciate the introduction very kindly. I'm going to loosen the tie, just because normally I don't wear a tie, but I said I would for today. But thank you so much for that, Mr. Headmaster. It's humbling. I'm not sure it's completely warranted, but I certainly appreciate it. Mike touched on a few things where my career has taken me over the years. And I wanted to just sort of fill you in as briefly as I can on a couple of interesting things one of which I uncovered today, and I thought about today more so, I guess because I was coming to speak to everybody tonight. And I've had the fortunate opportunity through my career to spend a lot of time talking to large audiences, small audiences, the media, analysts, mainly in my career at Sony Computer Entertainment. And mainly when I went to the US market, a good portion of my time was spent dealing with the analysts, and Mr. Wolf mentioned that we had a product called PlayStation, which did pretty successful for the company, but because of that, you were often under the microscope as to where the stock price was going to go. So often I would spend an inordinate amount of time not talking to customers as much, but with large groups of analysts, in particular in Wall Street, New York, and they would give you a grilling as to the good and the bad and the ugly as it related to the share price of the Sony Corporation stock, and in particular what PlayStation's impact on that was. And as a result of that opportunity, I had the opportunity a couple of years before that to be professionally media trained. Now, what does that really mean? It should mean that I can get up and talk in front of audiences, which I tend to be fairly comfortable doing. But you go into a very intensive training program and you get grilled for days on end by PR and media experts that prepare you for talking to audiences and representing large brands such as Sony's PlayStation. And I was able to do that quite successfully. I had a lot of very strong people around me that helped me get there, but I certainly was able to communicate the company's core values and the core messages. Today, when I came into the church, and I don't think anybody knows this, including our headmaster, I came over here today around about 11 o'clock. One of the things that I do when I speak to an audience is I generally don't prepare a presentation too far in advance. I generally like to get a feel for the room that I'm going to be presenting to. Obviously, I know a lot of you folks very well, but I like to get sort of a handle on the particular venue. And today was no exception to that. So as I would travel around the United States, Canada, and other parts of the world, and I was fortunate enough to have a pretty good team traveling with me, I would never practice a presentation ahead of time, but what I would do is I'd always visit the venue. I'd always want to take an opportunity to get a feel for the room and just see how things would flow when I got up to the podium, or if I wasn't to the podium and I was on a wireless mic, what I was doing. So today I walked in here, I think it's the first time ever in my life that I've been in this church when nobody else has been here. Now, Mike mentioned I've been affiliated with the school for the better part of 40 years. I grew up in Stanstead. I've had the luxury of standing at this podium on a number of occasions over those years. Some have been to be the guest speaker at the baccalaureate service a number of years ago. As a guest, Mr. Wolf invited me to do that. Other times it's been to very humbly accept awards, although be it none of them were academic, so that would be a first for me tonight if that was to happen. But I walked in here today and I sat down in this front row right in the corner here, and I was here for probably the better part of an hour. And actually Peggy called me, who works for me in the business office, and said, "Are you coming back? Because there's some other meetings you have to go to." And I came up to the podium and I hung around, I just got a flavor for the room. And as I was sitting and kind of walking around and figuring out what I wanted to say and how I wanted to tell you a few messages, it came to me that the probability of being associated with Stanstead College unto itself is very minor in the scope of things. And what I mean by that is the odds of me coming back and speaking here after being affiliated with the school since 1976 and now being here most recently in the last 12 months as an employee, the probability of being part of Stanstead College is really quite astronomical. Now, there's some of you in the audience that are mathematicians, and I'm sure there's some students that are excellent at determining what probability would be. But there's a student population in this school that ranges, 220, 221, 222, depending on the configurations of the rooms. I think we could get it as high as 225. Grade 7 to grade 12, day students and boarders. And we're talking about a school that competes for its share of students internationally and around the world. Mr. Fraser, Mrs. Ross, Mr. Ross, Mr. Wolf, and many others spend an inordinate amount of time traveling the world and taking this, what I would call a very large funnel, and funneling it down to approximately 220 students. And you folks sitting in the audience today, and I would argue including our faculty sitting in the audience today, the probability of any of us being here right now is so minute, it's unbelievable. If you take up the number of schools that we compete with not only in Canada, but internationally, in the United States, and South America, we are competing with a product, and I use the word product and I say with all due respect, but as a business guy I tend to equate everything back to the business world and to economics. But there's only 220 odd spots available. And if you add the number of students, the number of schools, the people that are sitting on your left, and your right, and in front of you, and behind you, the odds of you ever coming into contact with them is very, very minimal. And that got me thinking, what a place this is to be. It's not always perfect, but what an opportunity to come and be part of an institution that will hopefully give you the foundation, the grounding going forward. So remember that the next time things aren't going so well, that the probability of any of us being here together is remote to start with. So being a student or a faculty or the folks that work on my team, it's not always a privilege, it's hard work, it's frustrating at times, we all want things a certain way. But go back to that statement if you can, that the probability of it is pretty remote when we compare the number of students and the number of schools we have on this globe. I want to talk about 3 core things to you today. One is, don't close any doors in life. You know, whether you're here in grade 7 and you're just starting out your experience at Stanstead College, or you're in grade 12 and you're about to next fall enter into the university or college market, don't close any doors. Keep doors open. There's no need to close them. Some doors will close that you won't be able to impact, but more often than not, you'll be able to influence whether that door closes or not. So don't close doors. Keep as many doors open as you possibly can. Don't be afraid to course correct. Okay, you know, people will tell you, I hear this cliche a lot, it's a cruel world out there. Actually, it's not a cruel world. It's actually a pretty cool world. It's actually not all that bad. It's not all trauma and drama. And I certainly don't mean to be disrespectful to the challenges the world faces today, but it's not all that cruel. But sometimes you need to course correct. What I mean by that is you need to adjust your thinking or the path that you're on. And it's not always easy. But I've lived it. I've sat there, as many other people have, probably some of them behind me here over the years. It's not easy to make decisions. But the world is not a bad place. The world is a rather good place. And the fortunate part is, when I look out at this audience, it's going to even be a better place as some of you folks go off into the world and develop your own careers and your own thinking. So don't be afraid to course correct. It's going to happen. You're going to need to do it. And I don't mean just when you're in university or career, I mean when you're in grade 7. If there's something you need to do that's a little bit different, that's going to help you out academically, there's certainly an abundance of people to go to get that information or to get yourself course corrected. The other thing is change. There's only a couple of things that we can't control in this world, although we do try to do it with time, and we have daylight savings time, but you can't change time, and you can't change change. Change is here. I stood at this podium a number of years ago and addressed the baccalaureate service, and my whole theme of my presentation was around change. And whether you like it or not, change is going to continue to happen and evolve. So embrace it, don't fear it. Be open to it. It's very, very important that you do. And as I said, you know, when I left here in grade 12, I was scared because I had all these theories that, you know, the world is such a terrible place and there's so many things going on. It's folks like you that will change that and that will make a difference. And it starts with things like this athletic assembly. Sorry? Academic. Oh, did I say athletic assembly? I apologize. Okay, so that's the first error tonight. I'm sorry. You had to tell me that, right, Kurt? So those are the things. Don't be afraid to keep doors open. Close the doors that you don't want to go through. Be humble. Be respectable. But course correct if you're not happy. And the other thing is, when you leave here, and I'm talking, I guess, more to the folks that are about to go into university next year or college, you're going to go off to college or university, I would say probably the vast majority, if not everybody in the room, is going to earn a degree of some sort. And everybody will go out into their chosen field or take some time off and then go out into their chosen field and their chosen career. And, you know, they might stop one day and say, you know, I've got this BA and I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my master's. And university and college allows that. It is set up in such a way that you can always go back. You can start with a degree, you can go out and get a career, start a family, travel the world, and then decide in your 30s and 40s, I can go back to my old university and continue my education. You can't do that here. You get one shot at being at Stanstead College. You can't come back and do grade 10 over. You get to be here once. So it's very important that you take it very seriously, that you have some fun along the way. Because a lot of you will come back as alumni. Some of you will come back and probably be board members, and maybe you'll even come back and be employees. Apparently it happens from time to time. But you're never going to be able to be a Stanstead College student again. You've got one crack at that. And remember, it doesn't all have to be perfect. It doesn't all have to work out immediately. But the school today is better aligned, I think, than it's ever been. And you know, Mr. Wolf, I didn't know he was going to read that email to you, but I sent that, I think it was last night or this morning. I've never seen a group of students, and faculty for that matter, because you know, you've got to credit the faculty for the way the school operates. I went here in 1976, we were boys only. There was lots of great things about it. But I'm not convinced we were quite as advanced and far along as we are today. I don't think we were. And I think that has changed probably, I think a lot of it has to do with the leadership, Mr. Wells and Mr. Wolf at the helm of the school. I think it has a tremendous amount of things to do with our faculty. But I can stand here and say confidently, I don't believe the school was as far along in the evolution of what it was designed to be as it is right now. And that does create an amount of responsibility on your shoulders. Mr. Wolf quoted a couple of verses from the poem that I wrote, and again, flattered and humbled would be the best way to describe it. But there was another little line in there, and it said that your education's not over, it's just solidly begun. Thank you.
On behalf of the faculty and students here, I would like to thank you for your time and your words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the words. We're going to get on with the awards. We're going to start with the presentation of the scholarship pins. I'm going to ask Mrs. Crothers to go up in just a minute. There has to be a little bit of guidance on how we're going to receive and proceed after we get awards. I would ask all of the recipients of pins, certificates, etc., get out of your seats however you want, but I want you to come down this aisle here. We'll meet you here. You'll get your certificate. You'll shake hands, and then you go back this way and find your seat. So for the scholarship pins, there's not as many names, but when we get to academic honors, and more particularly with the heads list, where there are 50-some people, you're going to come up in groups of 3 or 4. We'll applaud after the groups of 3 or 4. They'll come by and we'll keep on going. So please make sure you come down this aisle. If you're sitting here, you've got a long way to walk. Okay, fair enough? Does everybody understand?
Entrance scholarships are awarded based on the results obtained in Stanstead College's annual entrance scholarship exam, and also take into account a student's grades, school and community involvement, athletics, character, and leadership. Scholarships are awarded to students who, in a nutshell, meet our motto: health, wisdom, and integrity. This is the 6th year that we award pins for our entrance scholarship recipients, and these pins are awarded primarily to first-year students at the school. And I'm very pleased to award these entrance scholarship pins to the following students. I will name all the students, and if you could come up, as Mr. Blair said, on this side, and we'll present them after, so I'll read all the names and have you come up all together. Ellen Ann, Andrew Bim, Sophie Farfan, Henry Haas, Richard Legler, Sophie Legler, Dolan Levy, and Samuel Smith.
So the next certificate presentations are for academic honors, and I would ask Mr. Prevost please to come up and read, and Mr. Jackson, if you can join me down there, please.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Good evening. Academic honor certificates are awarded to students who have achieved an overall average over 80% on the term reports and have not received any unsatisfactory effort rating. The recipients are, in grade 12, Claudel Abdo, Alissa Bissonnette, Charlotte Cannon, Chris Clegg, Jérémy Deschenaux, Connor Fletcher. Please come. Still in grade 12, Trevor Wang, Peggy Wang, Raphaël Lamoureux-Magar, Ulysse Mera, Michaela Pishlova, Jordan Pym, Olivia Woodcock, and Devin Wang. Now, recipients in grade 11. Katie Bowen, Edith Dastou-Moreau, Stéphanie Desjardins, Mario Gaudioso, Taylor Graton, Julia Guo, Jajama, Katie Peddle, and Zian Chen. In grade 10, Emmanuel Bernier, Ian Bissonnette, Elisabeth Gaudreau, Bill Wang, Morgan Ireland, Chili Jang, Christine Jean. The last four in grade 10, Cocoli, Gouillard Mat, Maud Poulin-Labelle et Johnny Wolf. Now, the recipients in grade 9. Maya Goudreau, Alexis Gay, Mackenzie Saint-Pierre et Wenchuan Xiang. And finally, in grade 8, Lucian Button, Ana Rosa Gallardo, Hideno Bukaga, Bana Nguyen, Bradley Roy et Sumomo Susuta.
I have the pleasure of presenting the headmaster certificates tonight. Heads List certificates and academic pins are awarded to students who have achieved an overall average of 85% on the term and have not received any unsatisfactory effort ratings. In grade 12, Ellen Ann, Bradley Brule, Matthew Chan, Lara Cooper, Shifu Guan. Ginger Jabour, Will Lawrence, Vincent Martel, Aaron Nugent, Sheila Wang, Susanna Wolf, and Tony Yang. In grade 11, Thomas Abbott, Loai Al-Rushdi, Kareem Chen, Shayla Coates, Maya Daigle, Samuel DeGrasse, and Stephanie Desjardins. Robert Lee, Ryan Horvath, Misha Hubacek, Richard Legler, Jeffrey Liao, Alice Liu, and Angelina Moe. The last three in grade 11 are Anna Smith, Tony Tu, and Michael Zarife. In grade 10, Alexander Grimm, Will Hawkins, Paul Tang, John Wood Downey, and Helen Yao. In grade 9, Allison Barlow, Patricio Flores Bringas, Sophie Legler, Philip Martel, Emily Willis, and Patrick Young. In grade 8, Andrew Bouchard. And in grade 7, Andrew Bim.
The final certificates of achievement are recognizing students who have achieved the highest cumulative term average in their grade with obviously no unsatisfactory effort ratings. I'll go 2 grades at a time. In grade 12, the highest average goes to Ellen Hahn. In grade 11, to Richard Legler. In grade 10, Alex Bim, and in grade 9, Patrick Young. And the final 2 will be no surprises. They're the only headmaster certificates in their grades. In grade 8, Andrew Bouchard. And in grade 7, Bon's enemy, Mr. Bim, Andrew Bim.
Well, I'd like to just close this out by thanking Ian for taking the time to share some thoughts with us this evening. Thank you so much for your message. That was fabulous. Congratulations once again to all of those who are recognized this evening. Well done. And no academic assembly is a good academic assembly unless there's been an oops. And the oops is that the sweaters that we had ordered earlier didn't arrive in time. And it was suggested on the way in that we play a practical joke on 1 or 2 of them, and I didn't have the heart to do that. So the grade 10, 11, and 12 highest achieving average people in their grade, hopefully the sweaters will be in by next Thursday, and when we're at our little gala at the restaurant, we'll present them then. Otherwise, I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Wolf to give his closing remarks. Thank you all very much.
I just want to add my thanks to Mr. Jackson, my congratulations to all the recipients, and a special thank you to Mr. Blair who put this all together. not easy to get everything organized, but he always does a great job, very efficient. Thank you, Mr. Blair. Could I have all of the prefects stay behind for a very LRC is open tonight as a second half study. So have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Is there?